Welcome to Vision on TV. We're here in London at the Open Technology Conference, and this is the Breaking Tech Show. So today we've got with us Sam and Matt, and you're going to tell us about the Sukey project. What on earth does that mean?
Okay, well, Sukey actually comes originally from the nursery rhyme, probably put the kettle on and Sukey take it off again. Us obviously coming out of the student movement, and initially our main project being to try and help people to not be kettled. And it's a little pun from there, really.
Just tell us quickly what is kettling? What do you mean?
Kettling essentially is the enforced containment of protesters while they're on demonstration, and it's quite an immoral and brutal tactic because you're denied your human rights for the time in which you're contained, and you can't get away.
And it's been a massive problem recently in the UK, hasn't it? And in London, lots of protesters complaining about it, lots of people worried about it. So what are you doing to... What is Sukey? This is an app of some kind?
Yeah, so it's an application, it's also a website and a text service, and it's designed really to keep people safe and mobile and informed during a time of protest.
So how does it work? We recently, for example, we had the big cuts protests, and was Sukey operating during that protest?
If you're referring to the 26th of March, it certainly was. Essentially, we undertake a massive effort of crowdsourcing, try and get as much information as possible to our server, crunch through it, get the most relevant and meaningful updates to send back to the users, keep people informed, give them timely updates of what's actually happening in real time, and they can make their own choices about what they do next in the protest, and how they can make the protest more effective is actually within their hands.
So just talk me through it a little bit. You know, I'm a protester, I'm out on a march somewhere, I'm involved in some direct action. How do I interface with Sukey? What are you guys doing? You know, how does it work on that level? And then how does it help me? How does it help me make those decisions? Sure. So firstly, just talk us through
ideally with our interface at the moment, you'd be on your smartphone. You'd log into our website and you'd have a couple of options open to you. You could send us a message or tweet to us about what's going on. You have... when
you say what's going on, what other protesters are doing, what the police is doing?
Essentially what, where and when. Any information that you would kind of like to receive as being something which is pertinent or relevant to what's actually happening. If there was a group forming outside a certain building, or if you could see lots of riot vans moving down a particular street at a particular time, that would be useful information to other protesters. So you'd actually publish that as an individual.
you would input that information using your smartphone, and that would go to
that would go to us. We would see it either if you tweeted it, we'd see it on the hashtag that you'd use on your Twitter account, or it'd be sent to our Google form, would it not?
Yeah, so there's a reporting feature in the app which allows you to send a message directly to our server, and in beta testing we used Google Forms as a means of getting that message to us, but now that capability is actually within the app, so you can send us a secure message, it's encrypted traffic, and that comes straight to us, rather than going through Twitter, which is a public network.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, what happens is we will cross-reference the information that comes in to make sure we know roughly how true it is. That will get republished so that everyone can see it. And then also, if it's anything to do with the status of an exit or like a cross section on roads on the protests.
So backstory here: an exit is, as in our parlance, is the junction between two roads, and a zone is the length along the road. So wherever a road meets another road, we call that an exit, and we have 3 colours on our map. On the map view of the application, the app, which is, if it's green, you can move freely between roads, between the exits. If it's red, we think there's a line of burly policemen there with truncheons, and you probably shouldn't attempt the route. If it's blue, it's in a state of flux, or we're not quite sure what's happening with it.
So as a protester, I can get that information on my smartphone, and then that enables me to make choices about, you say, to keep safer, or not. I mean, a protester might say, well, actually, I want to get a bit closer to that action, or...
Yeah, I mean, that's we provide the information that allows you to make that decision. We don't try and influence that. We just put the information out that we're a news desk, essentially, and that's our function.
And we're trying to be an impartial information source. So essentially, once that map is there, if you wanted to get around a particular obstacle to stage a protest somewhere more meaningful than just getting sucked into a large dead zone at a group of people that have been detained, then you can
So it
actually
helps
skirt
people
around.
avoid
You can
that.
skirt around the
Yeah.
trouble zone
Okay.
and get to where you want to get to,
So,
rather
I
than
mean,
just
it
being
can-
ill-informed and being like a herded animal. You can actually use the fact that everyone else is reporting and sharing information to actually benefit your decision-making process.
And the police are also interfacing with us, aren't they? Is that right?
Yes,
Interfacing's
they are. Yeah,
the
it's not
wrong
quite the right
word, I would say.
They can access it.
They can access it. So
Can they also input into
as
it?
any member of the public could.
yeah. So that yes, they can access it, and yes, they can input it, but only to the same extent that you or I could, well, not if I'm helping run the thing, but if you were on the ground, that's basically the access that the police would have. They would be able to tweet at us, and they'd be able to look at the feed and see the map, and that's literally where it ends with the police.
So, I mean, we've got undercover police officers infiltrating activist networks at the moment in the UK, as we know. So, isn't it possible that they could feed in false information to your...
They
I know you're talking
would.
about you can cross-check information, but is that a possibility? They could...
Of course,
that?
if they had quite an established... I mean, basically, it's unlikely because the information isn't likely to be repeated if it's untrue. People on the ground will not verify that information because that information will not come from other independent sources. So it would automatically lose ranking in our system.
And due to the nature of crowdsourcing, that's just how it
the
works,
problem
really.
disappears
Yeah.
when you have one user putting a version of the truth which isn't supported by anyone else.
Okay.
So that would fail. They're welcome to have 30 or 40 well-established Twitter accounts all saying the same lies and also integrated with all social networks. That's they're welcome to have a go at that.
So they have to be quite organised to...
Yeah, I mean,
pull that
essentially,
off.
you're immediately thrown into doubt if you're the only person tweeting about the fact that activists are throwing light bulbs filled with ammonia at the police out
Right.
of several thousand.
It sticks out and it's laughable.
Yeah. Okay.
Funny when it gets national media attention though, when it was off
missiles,
the back of one tweet.
So-called missiles. How well is it working? When did you? Yeah. What's the history of using it, trialing it?
Very rapid deployment. It's volunteer run. The effectiveness can be measured by the change in police behaviour during protests. Police are really being sort of kept honest on Twitter. I think that would be fair to say. On the
So you're talking now
Twitter
about
account.
what you've actually observed.
Measurable, achievable differences.
Since when?
We deployed. The first time we deployed was in December or November last year, and that was sort of a prototype version of the app, which is called the Live Protest Map. If you Google Live Protest Map, you'll find that.
First result, yeah, pretty much.
And that was off the back of work of 2 or 3 individuals at the UCL occupation, just trying to see if it could work. In principle, the other measures of the effectiveness of the platform are the fact that on I believe the 26th of March.
I think there might have been one before.
The protest before the 26th of March.
So sometime this year, anyway, you've been using it in a protest.
And
there was kettling in Manchester. There was kettling in Edinburgh or Glasgow, but there wasn't
any
incidents of kettling in London, which is where we
and
deploy.
we very
using the platform.
narrowly avoided one because of the fact that the police started employing our hashtag and actually republishing data that we could read
And
as
so
well.
that was a situation on the ground outside the Egyptian embassy, where the police had used our hashtag to communicate to our user base to say that they were not going to kettle the people who were protesting outside the Egyptian embassy because it was being conducted in a peaceful manner. They would allow and they'd support that protest continue.
I mean, is there a possibility that they're going to co-opt this app and sort of
I've heard
start
that word
using it as
before.
part of their what do they call it? Their new
Yeah.
community
Co-opt.
policing approach to
Co-opt
protest?
means to neutralise us. I would love to see them totally neutralise the effectiveness of people sharing information with other people. I don't see how that word encompasses the kind of... I don't see how they could do that, practically speaking. They might be able to, on press grounds, make themselves look better, but at the same time, because we've increased the transparency, or we've made protests more open, they will have to lose ground on lots of other issues, such as use of police force,
the fact that there's
use
meant
of the
to always
tactic of
be
kettling.
an exit to a kettle.
When have you ever heard of an exit for a
Actually
kettle
being
being
publicised,
publicised by the
yeah.
police? This doesn't happen, but yet they claim that there is an exit.
And by us
So-
sort of republishing this information and trying to make it more publicly accessible, it will highlight when things happen, like the police actually don't make it public, the things that they say they are doing.
Does it also present a risk to protesters? And I mean, could the police use this app to somehow track what protesters are doing?
It would be very, very
thing
difficult.
here,
Yeah, go on, you feel
essentially, if you're using a mobile phone on a protest which has been paid for by your credit card, or bought under your name. All of the data that you look through, you look at using your phone can be tracked, and you can be pinpointed pretty accurately just because you're using a mobile phone. It doesn't matter what you're doing with it. So
yeah, so this isn't, in your view, this isn't increasing that risk.
We're not the
beyond
weak
what's
link
already
in the
there.
chain at all. And if you publish
the
your
actual
data on
network itself,
Facebook or
really.
on Twitter, the police have specifically invested in technologies bought from the USA, or a company in the USA, to trawl social networks, to draw inferences about what your interests are, which groups you're involved in, what you're doing,
Yeah.
and log that data and analyse
Yeah.
it for sort of tendencies, and try and incriminate or gather some body of evidence or track you in real time.
Essentially, the answer is to try and go open source and
So
use something,
our
some kind of
best
alternative.
response to that is to make everything open, because the police deal in secrecy and deal in actually having banks of information which isn't publicly accessible. But if we can if we can get more open source journalism going on, get more people actually actively reporting what's happening during a protest, there won't be any opportunities for the police to effectively say, actually, we didn't just charge a group of protesters with loads of horses, and no one was injured, and it was fine. And
Right,
it didn't,
so you
it's because
see
it didn't
more also
happen.
having a role in documenting. It's sort of a citizen journalism.
Definitely, there's
role.
a big decision.
And
we want to,
the reference there was
yeah.
the fact that in November last year there was video evidence that an active advance by the police had taken place in both London and Manchester,
Yeah.
and the police flatly denied that despite the video evidence at the time. But sorry, as you were saying,
Yeah, no, actively we want to encourage and see whether we can make it more of a part of Sukey, this idea of video journalism, and trying, if possible, to get people to have stuff uploaded, these negative things happening during the protest,
Yeah.
online, ready to be reported by the BBC or whoever else wants to republish them whilst the protest is still going on, rather than 2 days
case in
later.
point, the BBC has traditionally, throughout the student protests in the last 6 months, reported very heavily against the student movement. It would seem that the feedback has always been, violent thugs tear up Whitehall or something, rather than the reality of the situation, which is mostly middle class students from Russell League universities, all actually thinking the same thing, that they've been missold the package of university education actually leading to some benefit in your life. You're actually
Sukey,
leading to unemployment, and essentially we've all been we've been misguided,
represented.
we've been given a lie.
Sukey,
to
you
swallow.
yourselves have been criticised for making a distinction between different kinds of protesters in the past.
We got it wrong. We'll get it right by moving forwards in a spirit of actually not judging or regarding
Yeah.
the intentions of the protesters as being fit for, it doesn't matter. They're free to use the service. I think Matt puts it a bit better.
Yeah, basically, we don't make a judgment call on that. It's up for them to do what they want with it, and I think good and bad protesters is kind of it's not a non-entity, really. I don't think the distinction should be drawn.
And it's certainly not the case that we should draw that distinction. Our
So from
tagline
now
used to be a tool for peaceful,
Not gonna
non-violent demonstrations, but our sort of mission statement, our tagline now is, Sukey is a tool for people to stay mobile and informed during protests. So that's a better way of viewing what we're about.
It's to enable
And,
people
we're
to
learning.
be safe.
So
Yeah.
we're trying to get it. We're trying to get it right now.
So, how do people find out about it? Websites,
Yeah,
kind of thing?
so we've got the website, which is www.sukey.org. We also have a GitHub account, which can be found on the website, which allows developers to actually make their own contributions to our code. Are there any other ways you can think of?
Yeah, just Google Sukey, Sukey. Check out the press page if you want to see what we're about. Come to one of our hackathons, which will be held at London Hackspace. It's a cool event. There'll be beer, there'll be pizza, there'll be guys hacking on code, hanging out. So,
and women, I hope, as well.
Thank you. I got there before I realised I used guys, but in
No
non-gender
worries.
specific terms.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching today. You're on Vision on TV. See you next time.